Hello and welcome to Dash of Soul with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, podcaster, poet, and freelance proofreader. Wow, episode 7 was a lot to take in. Now, this is one of those extremely action-heavy episodes, so I don't think as much story or character analysis is needed this time. Plus, I do have a lot to catch up on when it comes to the prior episodes and getting those subtitled. So I think I'm going to try to just keep my coverage to 2 or 3 episodes of the podcast, unless I have time and reason for more. In any case, let's begin. First of all, we finally have Armin Arlelt and Han Zoe back. Armin, my precious boy. I think I can safely say now that the way we saw him here confirms for us that he isn't the same one who lured Peak and Galliard into the trap. I don't think there would have been enough time to go back and forth like that, right? Anyways, the introduction of the Colossal Titan was pretty darned awesome. It was definitely intense and awe-inspiring, and so eerie. Like the way the land and even the air itself seemed like they were covered in this layer of blood. And just the sheer scale and power of the destruction. To have massive battleships catching air like they're caught in an enormous tornado, it's like they didn't even have weight anymore. And the whole dynamic is really interesting, and I hope we get to see and hear more of it, because Armin, as a Titan now, he's been put into one of the last situations he'd ever want. He's the pacifist who never liked or had an inclination towards battle and fighting, yet now he's a Titan, and one of the single most destructive Titans at that. In a way, he and Hanja are very much in the same boat, I just realized. Hanja is one of the characters I'm most excited to see and play this season, because she's now been put into this whole command position. I love how they made that reference to Erwin. It was a really nice moment. But oh my goodness, the sheer irony of having her call anyone else reckless. I mean, as I recall, the OVA had Levi calling her a four-eyed B-word for how she was recklessly endangering his men with her antics. But one thing about Hanja is that she essentially revealed that her main personality and behavior that we've seen was sort of forced, I guess you could say. She actually hated the times that you pretty much expect someone in her situation to, but she felt that there was really no benefit to that. And she also realized what a mystery they were. So Hanja thought maybe in studying and learning about them, the team would finally figure out how to defeat them. And to facilitate that, she tried to take on this attitude of curiosity and even admiration in place of the regular hatred. However, I think one thing we see with Hanja is that actually her original feelings are still there, and there's this really creepy and even sadistic streak, and sometimes a more open anger. And I think all of that is sort of a result of her original emotions peeking through. She's sort of twisted them into this rabid, desperate curiosity we see with her, but I think there's a reason we have this very dark edge to them as well. But now she's in a situation where she's in command, more so than she was as just a section commander, and she no longer has either Erwin or Moblit to be there and restrain her and clean up after her. Just at the end of season 3, like when she was speaking to Mikasa, and now that we're first seeing her here, we definitely see a more normal feeling Hanja, and I can't help but think maybe that's closer to what her normal personality and behavior were before she molded herself into this somewhat warped scientist. So I'm very, very intrigued to see what she'll be like now that she has to be a proper adult. Currently, we have her chiding Armin about recklessness. Alright, Zoe. Whatever you say, boss. What next? Okay, Levi. Wow, that really caught me off guard. I definitely did not remember how easily Zeke fell this time around. One move with the blades, one single thunder spear, and it was done. Checkmate in 2 moves. Zeke was somewhat stagnant in that scene anyways, but the others were already on the lookout for Levi, and it's a heck of a sight to see him take out Zeke with almost the same ease he would a regular Titan. I also noticed how calm Levi actually was there. It has been 4 years, but even so, he seemed much more relaxed than I had anticipated there. What else caught my attention here? Peak. I'm pretty sure we have heard the Cart Titan speak in season 3, but I completely forgotten what that sounded like, and oh my goodness, that was a bit of a shock to the system. The Cart Titan already has a bit of a creepy look, and I say that as a positive thing, and the voice definitely adds to that. It's such an eerie combo, especially with what a contrast it is to the soft, feminine voice Peak has as a human. And I gotta say, it's really neat how she is in sort of a command position here. Peak is a really strong contributor to the team, and you see how her observational skills come into play. And I'd say it's probably a combination of those and good instincts as well. I remember when I was talking about the skills that Reiner and his peers had, I said that Peak's abilities seemed to center around her sharp observational skills and probably having good judgment as well, in order to actually make use of that information she obtains. Now, Galliard in this episode. We saw in episode 1 of the season what a strong player he is himself. He saved Gabby, Falco, and Reiner during that first battle, and he was also highly effective as a combatant. Here we saw him get more flustered, going up against the folks on Paradise. I talked about this a bit in my conversation with Wolf about episode 6. We saw how flustered he was at the end of episode 6 because he's used to operating in a dynamic where Titans have been the ultimate power and other nations are only just starting to be able to combat them effectively. Meanwhile, our folks on Paradise in the Survey Corps / Scout Regiment / Reconnaissance Regiment do this as their weekday job, just about. And I think we saw a weakness of his where, as things started to fall apart and become more desperate, his temper and his emotion overtook him, and he started charging ahead too much and becoming reckless. And, well, we see how that ended up. Eren absolutely trounced him, and more brutally so than I even remembered. Ironically enough, someone made a great point that the way Galliard lost the limbs of the Jaw Titan is very reminiscent of what we saw happen to Eren during that first battle in Trost, where he lost his left leg, and then lost his left arm saving Armin. And it was pointed out that the way Galliard was behaving in this sequence was also reminiscent of Eren, especially young Eren. Losing his cool, rushing ahead too quickly, that sort of thing. So the two actually have some of the same weaknesses to an extent. Although another note made is that Eren was a 15-year-old kid who had only just completed training. Galliard is both older and more experienced here. Though, in his defense, another fan pointed out that this is probably his first time fighting directly against other Titans in serious combat, since Galliard has never been to Paradise before. So being up against Eren, especially an Eren who now has this level of skill and experience, would have been quite the situation to run up against. The back and forth about Galliard's performance in this fight has been fun to read. On the one hand, Peak basically wanted the team to hang back, guard Zeke, and wait on reinforcements. But then that last part became somewhat moot because the naval forces were wiped out by the Colossal Titan, and that was pretty readily apparent. I mean, they saw freaking battleships flying up in the air. So reinforcements were not going to be forthcoming, at least not from that avenue. That said, Galliard still probably could have held off more and played things more defensively. And the key point we see is that he was getting pretty emotional and at least somewhat desperate at that point. If he'd been calmer, he probably wouldn't have made the same decisions. And we see where those decisions got him. That whole sequence was interesting. When Eren finally got a hold of him, I had forgotten the details of that fight, so when he started ripping off limbs and then smashing his skull to daze him so he couldn't resist, that was pretty freaking jarring, but also great. Really darn great. I've said that 2 words I would use to sum up this whole episode are A, intense, and B, brutal. And the whole fight with Galliard was the epitome of that, especially once Eren gains the upper hand. I'm going to start going into that next episode, and I'll share both what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy as much when it came to the battle with Galliard. I honestly did feel a bit of disappointment, even though there were also aspects I loved. Alright guys, thanks for listening to me today, and I hope you've had a great time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn notifications on so you can get updates. And you can help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, social media, etc. Now be blessed and stay salty.